Howdy. Today I'm going to talk about a specific topic, and the topic is speaking. And I don't mean speaking in front of your friends or anything like that. I mean being a professional speaker, going out, traveling different areas of the country and standing in front of a bunch of people and speaking about a topic that you know something on. Now, I do these videos pretty much once a week, and I may not always be the most glib person while sitting here in front of the camera. That's because when I'm doing the videos, even though I'm trying to be somewhat professional and tell my story and be at least somewhat smooth, I'm really not that smooth, because what I do here, a lot of times I think of it just earlier in the day or maybe even a couple of days earlier, and I think of something and I say, you know what, that's what I'm going to do the video on. And then I basically sit down and I talk. Every once in a while, if I'm putting together some information that I need to share for a longer video, then I at least write some things down and I look at it. And even then, I find that I am not necessarily, doing all that great when I do it, but I can get certain stuff out there. But in general, it's not necessarily one of those types of things where I sit down and I really rehearse a lot. Now, you will find some of the big YouTubers do this jump cut thing. That's because if they mess up, they just stop it and they start all over again. I don't know how to edit video. I've never thought about learning how to do it. I probably should. But to me, I'm thinking that it's a little better if I just continue going live like I do instead of doing all the jump cuts. Because at one point I'm over here and then suddenly I'm over here. And sometimes that just looks a little strange. And I'll admit it's a little off-putting. But the big folks get away with it. And, that works well for them. I ain't got that kind of time. Anyway, I am a professional speaker. I've spoken in 9 states. I've done a keynote in Alexandria, Virginia. I spoke in Nebraska. I spoke in Maine, but mainly, states around here. I've spoken a lot in New York because I live in New York. Not New York City. I live in the Syracuse area. But I've spoken a lot around here. I've spoken in Rochester, and I spoke in, oh my goodness, I had it, Utica. I've spoken locally. Anyway, the difference between what I do here and what I do as a professional speaker really is in preparation. For instance, if I'm asked to speak on a certain topic, then what I do is I get my Excel spreadsheet, because I love to start with Excel, and I create an outline. And the outline I create usually starts off with at least 25 or 30 things. It's always long. It's always a long outline, even if I have to reduce it. It's rare that I get to speak for less than an hour. Every once in a while it comes down to 45 minutes, but in general, I speak usually anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. And I like to do as much of it as I can without notes. Now, if I have a PowerPoint, because sometimes you're doing a training of some sort, so you have to have a PowerPoint, then there's parts that I get to kind of skip a little bit here and there. But when I'm just doing general speaking, I usually go in without any notes, which basically means I have to memorize all my points. It's easy to memorize my points if I have it written down on my spreadsheet. So I write all these things down on a spreadsheet, and then I break it up into, okay, this is the main point, this is the main point, this is the main point. And I go anywhere from 3 to 7. That's pretty much my range. I could probably do more, but a lot of books that you'll read on speaking say try to limit how many points you're getting to somebody. Matter of fact, a lot of speakers say only go with 3. But, I don't listen to everybody. So, like I said, 3 to 7, depending on what the topic is. And I remember the headlines. And then I remember what points I want to get across under each one of the headlines. So that's the first stage. Then the second stage is to make sure that I've done enough research or have enough knowledge on each one of these things so that I can give out certain stats every once in a while, quote somebody. And I like to have stories, because I have found that people remember things better when you tell a story than if you just throw out stats. Now, there are times that doesn't work. Whenever I've done a healthcare seminar, for instance, it's mainly statistics. There's very few stories I get to tell. I get to tell a couple here and there, but in general, I don't get to tell stories. And actually, for the keynote I did in Virginia, I told a parrot joke between each major topic. And these people like the parrot jokes. Parrot jokes are the only jokes I know. Just thought I'd throw that in there. So anyhow, I will start off with the outline. I will break it out into different categories. I will have the different ways that I need to promote that thing. I will do a little bit of research. I will think about what kind of stories I can tell. And then it's rehearsal time. And rehearsal time is very important because, like I said, you're given a certain amount of time that you can talk. And when I rehearse, I actually rehearse. I go into the living room because it's a bigger open space than my office. I don't sit down because when you're doing a speaking engagement, you're not sitting, you're standing. So I go into my living room and we have 4 mirrors on one of the walls. And I use the 4 mirrors as the different sections of a stage. And I basically talk to them. Because one of the things with professional speaking is you want to make sure you're looking at all the different areas of an audience. You don't want to just sit there staring. You don't want to be looking up all the time. You don't want to be looking down at your feet. You want to make eye contact with different people in the audience. So I do that. And I go through everything. And the first time I always seem to go over. Which is, this is a lot of preparation. If I'm giving a 2-hour presentation, for instance, sometimes I'm talking almost 3 hours before I say, okay, it's time to stop here. I'm way over time. I've got to cut stuff out. And then you go and you cut stuff out. I'm almost always over. But I rehearse over and over again. Most times I rehearse at least 10 times. Now think about that. That basically says that if I do an hour presentation, I've probably rehearsed at least 13 to 14 hours. And it may not necessarily sound like a whole lot of time, but it really is because of the time I've put in putting something together up front. Then there's the time where after I've spoken and tried it out a little bit and I have to go back and cut. That takes time. You don't just do that on the fly. And I rehearse and I rehearse and I rehearse until I know it really well. Then, if I'm leaving town for a speaking engagement, whenever I get somewhere, I like to go see where it is I'm speaking, and then I run through one more time in the hotel. That's what you do if you're a professional speaker. Now, some of you may know who Zig Ziglar is, and of course he's passed away now, but Zig Ziglar used to say that he rehearsed every single day. He had a series of speeches already set, but he said he rehearsed every single day, at least one of those. I don't do that because I speak on a lot of different topics. I mean, believe it or not, I've spoken on healthcare finance, I've spoken on leadership, I have spoken on diversity, I've spoken on motivation. I did a customer service presentation once. I can speak on a bunch of topics. Oh, that's right. I spoke on social media marketing, I've spoken on blogging, I've spoken on writing. A whole lot of topics. But like I said, when it comes time to do it, I have my research and I rehearse. This is what it takes to be a professional speaker. You rehearse, you rehearse, you rehearse. And I like to do it without notes. PowerPoint presentation is a different story because you want to give people visuals. But if I just get to talk, then, the sky's the limit. And you always have to have something in there to lighten up the crowd. One of the dangers that I know that some people have run into when they're professional speakers is that they decide that they want to be stand-up comedians more than professional speakers, and then they start using language that, that audience did not come for that. That's a big warning. Y'all need to know that right now. If you're going to be a professional speaker, don't go out in front of a group of people and start cussing all over the place. Almost nobody can get away with it. Even Tony Robbins, who has changed the way he delivers his presentations over the years, he may throw out a word or two here and there these days, but he didn't used to. But he's Tony Robbins. Almost no one else is going to get away with that. And yes, I know you're probably thinking, well, there should be adults, they should be able to handle it. Well, let me ask you the question. Do you want someone to give you a positive review so that you can do another speaking engagement if it comes down to it? If you do, don't do it. And for those people who are scared to speak in front of others, I'm going to say the same thing to you that I said to people some years ago when I was talking about doing videos. Get over yourself. People have seen you speak. Your friends, if you've ever talked to anybody, they've seen you speak. If you've ever talked to your parents, they've seen you speak. You look just like you're going to look. It doesn't matter whether you're in front of an audience of 5 people or 200, and 200 plus is my biggest audience to date. One of these years I want to get 1,000, but I'll stick with what I got for now. But you know, there's no sense in being scared of standing in front of an audience. Be scared standing in front of a bull who's running you down and wants to try to kill you. Don't be scared of an audience. They really want you to succeed. They came hopefully to see you. Just get out there and do your thing. If you're asked to do it, just do your thing. Anyway, this is my little tip, my little presentation on how to be a professional speaker. If you've done speaking, tell me about it. Tell me about some of the things you've done. And if you haven't, and you want any more tips, or you want to ask some questions, let me know. And by the way, if you are part of an organization that's looking for a professional speaker on some topics, hey, I'm your guy. And I don't come super expensive, but I ain't cheap either. Anyway, my name is Mitch Mitchell. Like, subscribe, share. Have a wonderful week.